jokes that you guys laugh because I'm going to need a lot of feedback. I'm kind of nervous speaking in front of such a big group, so I don't get the opportunity to speak in front of a big group like this very often. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it. So Mike talked a little bit about the two components. The one thing is if you have personal information, right? And if you have personal information, what is personal? What personal information is? So for personal information, in terms of even my company, I have employees, right? So in terms of their W-2 form and all their payroll paperwork that I have to collect as an employer, I have now collected information about a resident of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Hence, I have to comply with this law. So I, as a business owner, have to have a comprehensive written information security program for my business. Now, the second part of this is computer system requirements. What this means is if you have personal information on your computers, at a minimum, you have to comply with these requirements. This is how the law reads. Every person that electronically stores or transmits personal information shall include in its written comprehensive information security program the establishment and maintenance of a security system covering its computers, including any wireless systems, including at a minimum the following elements. So we're going to talk about those elements that has to be covered at a minimum on your computer network. So the first thing is secure user authentication protocols, including control of user IDs and other identifiers, secure method of assigning and selecting passwords, or use of unique identifier technologies. So what is control of user IDs and other identifiers? Well, what the law says is that everybody has to have their own username. So you cannot be sharing the same username within your organization. Everybody has to have their own login. And then secure method of assigning and selecting passwords. So we can't be just making these things up. I'm sure when everybody goes to certain websites nowadays, in certain places you'll have to put in the uppercase, lowercase, number, and then something like a pound sign or an exclamation point. It has to be 8 characters long. Okay, that's a secure method of assigning and selecting a password. Okay? No longer can you use your dog's name, your mother's name, your son's name, a birth date, things like that. Okay? We want to be able to secure methods of assigning and selecting passwords. So I put up here, and if you recognize your password here, you may as well hand over your wallet first to the first person you see on the street. Okay? These are very easily hackable passwords. If you ever need help assigning a password, this is a great one right here. You go to this website right here. That gives you some good ideas. And in terms of ideas and selecting passwords also, sometimes you can remember a phrase. So, think of a phrase that I walk the dog across the street, and then you just use the first initials of each one of those words or phrase and make that part of your password. Okay? So there's different ways and techniques that you can use to remember what these passwords are. Next one is control data security passwords to ensure that such passwords are kept in a location and or format that does not compromise the security of the data they protect. Well, what does that mean? Well, for 20 years in this business, I've worked on computers ever since the early 90s. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone to somebody's office and I needed a password to get on their machine. And the first place I look is usually on that credenza that pulls out, right? It's usually written right there, okay? The real creative ones put it on the upside up, flip up the keyboard, it's right there, right? Or even the people that really don't care, right? It's written right there on the monitor, you can just, there's the password, and you said the password to log in, right? Right here it is. So what we want to do is we want to control the data security, okay? The best way to talk about this is really think of it as the information that you're protecting, personal information, maybe it's even financial, access to financial parts of your systems, right? What we want to do is protect that password in the same way we protect money. You don't leave a $100 bill on the credenza, right? You don't put it underneath the keyboard, and you surely don't tape it right to your monitor, right? So we want to protect that information the same way. Okay? Where do we put those secure passwords? Do we have to write them down? Right? Do we have to have paper? Right? For money? We put it in our wallets. We put it in our purse. We secure that information. Take it with us. Okay? So we want to make sure that we don't write these things down. Also, we do a lot of security audits and network audits. And what we'll try and do sometimes with the owner's permission is to actually try to do a social networking hack into somebody's organization. And basically what we do is we call up to one of the employees, you know, it's usually the receptionist, the poor woman, but you call up and you say, "Hi, I'm Bill, I'm from the IT company, and I need to get on your systems because I understand you're having a problem." Now, who in this room doesn't ever have problems with their computers, right? So they say, "Okay, no problem." You redirect them to a website, next thing you know it, you have access to their whole systems, okay? So it's also, when we talk about it a little later, is talking about education of employees, education of the knowledge of computer security, and telling your employees why it's important. And that's the last part of this whole requirement too, under the law. So memorize your password. Do not share your password. That's a unique one too, where excuse me, we don't want to share your password. So if I need to have access to your system as a system administrator, well, alarms should go off in your head. I already have access to you because I'm your administrator. If I want to reset your password, I can do that. Okay, I should never ask you for your password. Your boss should never ask you for your password either, because either he is the administrator and should have access to it anyway, or the administrator you'd have access to that information because he causes problems. So we want to make sure that you do not share your password as part of the law. And you must write it down, record it safely, and put it in your wallet or something. Next one is restrict access to active users and active user accounts only, and block access to users' identification after multiple unsuccessful attempts to gain access. So the first one, restrict access to active users and active user accounts only. So what is the policy and procedure in your organization when somebody is terminated from your organization? Change the passwords, right. And you got to know what systems or what areas they had access to, so you can change those passwords appropriately. Okay? And then also blocking access to users that after multiple unsuccessful attempts. Very easily I can run a program on your system. It's not about if, it's about when I'll get access to your system. But by turning on this one little piece of technology, by blocking access, ever get locked out of a website or a place you wanted to go because you just couldn't remember that password? I have, okay? That's because they're employing this type of technology. On my network at my office, I get 5 shots to get my password. If I don't get it, I get locked out. Okay, I get locked out for 20 minutes. The reason why this is important is if I load up a dictionary attack on your account, after 5 tries, I'm locked out. I can't, it's not going to take any more. It's not, even if I got it right on the 6th attempt, it's still going to lock me out. So it makes it very hard to attack that account or hack into that account. Secure access control measures that restrict access to records and files containing personal information to those who need information to perform their job duties. What does that mean? Well, maybe the receptionist doesn't need access to the accounting system. Maybe she does. Okay? But only the people that, or maybe a broker doesn't need access to that information that has personal information on your network. It's really going through your business and business processes and finding out who needs access to what. And then restricting access to that sensitive information to only those people that need access to it. And then also, we talked about it a little bit earlier, assign unique identifications, which is username and passwords to each person's computer access. This is the fun one right here. Encryption. All transmitted records and files containing personal information, or what personal information is, that will travel across a public network. What's a public network? Anybody know? Shout it out. Internet. I heard internet, right? The internet is a public network. Okay? And when I email personal information from my computer to you, is that encrypted or unencrypted? Usually unencrypted. It really depends, but it's usually unencrypted. Okay? So what we need to do is be using technologies that encrypt that information if we're going to be sending it via email or across a public network. Okay? The other thing, we talk about wireless and PDAs. How are we transmitting information from your office systems and your office computers to your PDAs. Is that traffic being encrypted? Okay, especially if it has personal information on it. And any and all data containing personal information to be transmitted wirelessly. Okay, so if I take my computer into your office or outside your building, and can I just jump on your computer? And if you're using web encryption, WEP encryption, or WPA encryption, you can pretty much go ahead to a website called WEP Crack, and that site will tell you all about how to hack into that network within 10 minutes. So if you're going to be connecting onto a wireless network, okay, at your office, okay, make sure that it's not connected internally to your network, or if it is, it's using some pretty secure technology, especially if you're storing personal information inside of the network. And the second thing is if you're going to connect in to your office, make sure you're encrypting that traffic between the two sites. So next one is reasonable monitoring of systems for unauthorized use or access to personal information. Encryption of all personal information stored on laptops and other portable devices. So the first one is reasonable monitoring of systems for unauthorized use or access to personal information. Well, there's some great technology out there for reasonable monitoring of systems. It's called intrusion detection systems. However, for a small business, it's almost too cost prohibitive to implement inside of a very small business. So the things that we could be doing as small businesses is looking at the firewall. Okay, when's the last time that firewall was patched? When was the last time that firewall was updated? How are we allowing, what traffic we're allowing into that network, and how is it secure? Those are the types of things we need to look at. Also, we'll talk a little bit later about what you need to be doing on the PC level. Encryption of all personal information stored on laptops and other portable devices. So if I have personal information on my notebook computer, the notebook computer should be encrypted. There's some pretty cool technology now available with Windows Vista and Windows 7. It's all built in, the ultimate versions of both of those. It's called the BitLocker. And BitLocker allows you to encrypt your hard drive, the whole entire hard drive on your computer. So you don't have to really worry about it. It just happens automatically. You fire it up, you log in, and off you go. So I have an example. Bob is a local realtor. He forgets his laptop in a cab. The laptop has a BIOS password before booting. It also has a username and a strong password. Bob is annoyed at the loss of a laptop but feels safe about his privacy of his data. Is he right? No. Who said no? Why not?
I would imagine somebody can get into it. Somehow, somewhere. I don't know too much about it.
Go ahead.
Just take the hard drive out. You put it in a spider or zip file.
She read one of my favorite books. Hacking for Dummies, right? Bob is wrong. Physical access to any computer almost guarantees a hacker will get to your unencrypted data. So even if you have all these passwords, all I have to do is simply pull out that hard drive, put that hard drive in a computer that I am authenticated to, okay, and I can see everything on that hard drive. Not a problem. That's why it's important to make sure your notebooks that have personal information are encrypted. Now, even taking it a little step further, I, as a business owner, the president, CEO of my company, I have some confidential information on my computer too. And I wouldn't necessarily want anybody on the street getting access to this confidential information. So even if I don't have personal information on my machine, I'm still going to encrypt it because I know that stuff will remain safe even if I lost my notebook. And like I said, it does not require a highly sophisticated attack. Another part of the law, minimum requirement, up-to-date firewall protection and operating system security patches for systems connected to the internet. Who doesn't have a computer here that's not attached to the internet in today's world? Right? Everybody. So it's pretty much every computer. So one of the things is your firewall protection up to date? Is your system patched, fully patched? And how do you know that? And how do you measure that? How would you ever show that to an auditor that came in and say, and did an audit against the March 17 compliance? So those are the questions you need to start asking yourselves about. Up-to-date versions of system security agent software, which includes malware protection, and reasonably up-to-date patches and virus definitions. Another example. A senior executive for a CPA firm does not like the antivirus program. Removes it and installs one of his preference. The senior executive is happy, but the company is unaware. New program fails to update. User PC gets infected. Okay? So again, it's not only about knowing if you have or installing it, thinking that your employees have the software loaded, but it's also inspecting the expect, right? Having, most of the major software now has the ability to, you can make it all on a central console. So I can see in my office when I log into one of the servers, I can see when's the last time a computer was updated with the most recent virus. And I can also set it up to email me if something falls more than a week behind. So very easy technology to deploy. Because of that PC got infected, the main company server is hacked. Example 3. Company with an active e-commerce site. The server is behind the firewall. The website uses SSL encryption for all data transitions. It's pretty secure. We're talking back and forth. Only SSL is allowed from the internet into the server. And Bill feels good about his server. What do you think? Probably like next one, look way over your head. So basically, what happens is what a firewall is really usually uses stateful inspection. So what that means is, if I take a PC and put it into my internal network, it thinks that everything behind the firewall is trusted. Everything outside the firewall is untrusted. If I go out and the traffic originates from inside the network to an external site, traffic's allowed to come back in to that PC because the traffic started internally. Okay? So because what happened on the previous example, right? That PC got hacked, right? Now that's a launch pad for everything else inside that network. And if it's a Trojan, which allows somebody to then control that PC, now they have access inside the whole entire network, which is for a hacker, great way to start attacking all the other PCs connected to that network. Bob's hacked computer can serve as a launchpad for attack against the server. Other attacks exist that exploit OS vulnerabilities directly. Here's my last example. Bob is very conscious of his company data, so Bob makes sure everything is backed up daily. Alright, Bob. To protect against disaster, Bob diligently manages several weeks' worth of tape sets. Bob takes one set of tapes to his own house and stores them in his basement. Sounding pretty good so far? Well, until Bob's home gets broken into, right? So what we want to make sure of is when we take the data off-site, off your network, right, that data is encrypted. So even if Bob's home is broken into, those tapes and those backups are also encrypted, such that no one could ever read those tapes. And the final part of the law states that the education and training of employees in the proper use of computer systems and the importance of personal information security. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for the data side of the law. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bill. So now for the remainder of the few minutes before we open it up for Q&A, I'd like to just talk a little bit about what's going on the federal level. What we call our federal red flag rules are going into effect on June 1st of 2010. The red flag rules are different from what we have here in this state. The red flag rules says it requires creditors and financial institutions with covered accounts to implement programs to identify, direct, and respond to patterns, practices, and specific activities that would indicate identity theft. Not as many real estate brokerage firms are going to fall under what we call our red flag rules. Creditors, I guess one could argue, could be defined as one who regularly extends credit, such as like a bank or a lending institution, but also it's part of the information that's provided by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. A creditor could also be a real estate broker who's regularly engaged in arranging for credit for a tenant. So somebody who regularly accepts tenant applications, regularly runs credit reports, and provides those to landlords. That's pretty much, for the most part, what we see is real estate brokers being covered by these federal red flag rules. Implementation date is June 1st. These are nationwide rules that are going into effect. Again, these have been delayed a number of times. As far back as 2008, these were being discussed, but have been delayed a number of times. There is also some discussion on the federal level that Congress might legislate in this area of data security and have one piece of legislation that would cover the entire country. If you all remember back in 2003 with the Do Not Call registry, in Massachusetts, what happened, there was a state law that was passed. We were successful in getting an exemption for realtors who had a business relationship with, or who were calling for, with the purpose of calling for setting up a face-to-face meeting. That was the exemption, so it covered realtors. On the state level, we had an exemption. And then 6 months later, Congress regulated, and our exemption had gone away because they enacted a federal piece of legislation that covered everybody for the most part. In the same way, Congress might legislate in the area of data security at some point in the future. There is a bill that's being talked about. It has already actually passed the House, and I think it's sitting in the United States Senate right now. We don't know if that will pass anytime soon with all of the other issues that they're dealing with down there in Washington. But someday in the future, I wouldn't be surprised if a federal piece of legislation came forward, preempted all of our state laws and requirements across the country, and had a new standard. So bear in mind that may happen someday. If that does happen, your state National Association of Realtors will probably be very much out in front and provide you with the necessary information. So if you want more information on the red flag rules, go to the FTC's website, ftc.gov. They also have a boilerplate or fill-in-the-blank policy that you can actually go on there and on their website type it in, name your company, who's going to be responsible, the types of activities that you're engaged in, the types of steps that you'll be taking to protect personal information. So it's very helpful. Again, there's penalties on the federal level as there is with the state level. Next steps, I guess before we open it up for Q&A, just to reiterate, there's two requirements here. Number one, they're going into effect on March 1st. The two requirements, number one, is the Written Information Security Policy, the WISP. Look at the model policy online. Use that as a basis if you'd like. It's very helpful. Number two is the stuff that Bill talked about, making sure your computer systems are reasonably secure. Again, I reiterate that I don't know that any real estate company that's ever been targeted by a hacker, or real estate companies, as a general rule, weren't the target of these regulations. State regulated, there was no single industry across the board that was exempted from these regulations. It applies to everybody in the state who collects personal information. There surely will be, come March 1st, there will be some industries out there where there is non-compliance. What we're telling you today, I suppose, is that there are instances where the regulations do apply to brokers. Take a look at those instances, assess as part of your office policy whether there's some steps that you can take to minimize that personal information that you do take into your office. If it's information that you have to take into your office, then take steps to secure it. And it's really as simple as that, I suppose. I don't know that we have any more slides, so